in that 10% that's being impacted, wouldn't you be upset about that? A lot of people don't want to stand up and fight and help others that are weaker than themselves because they say, well, it's not my problem. But eventually, it's going to be all our problem. And at this particular point, those carbon emissions that's going up into the air right now is already all of our problems. Sea levels are rising. Global warming is real. We're seeing it on the Gulf Coast. We have seen one of our roads that lead right to a beach called McFadden Beach that we used to take to go to the beach in the 60s and 70s. That road is gone. And the beach used to be back, the sand was back maybe about a good 100 yards or so, about a football field away from that road years ago. And already that water comes in, and at high tide, the water is washed across the road. And then when it does recede, it only goes back maybe about 30 yards, 35 yards. We can no longer take that road. We have to go as far up north as possible, north about 30 miles, then we have to go 10 miles to the west, and then we go back down toward the coast, head south. And then we get back on that road and continue on to Galveston or stop there at the beach if we want to go to the beach. But that water is so acidic now to where I'm sensitive to it. I can't get in it. My wife got into it about 3 years ago, and we were in Galveston, and her leg broke out. She had a huge boil on her leg, on one leg on this side, and then on the inside of her leg. And we was like, what the hell? And the only thing we could think of is we went to Galveston, and she don't like to get in the water because she don't like to get her hair messed up. So she's in the water, and she goes to the water up to maybe almost to her knee. And she stood there for a while and splashed around, and then she got out. And I went in, I'm swimming all the way out, I'm having a ball. I come out, and I was unscathed. But about 3 days later, right along her leg area, she had these huge boils that came onto her leg. She went to the doctor, she had to take a shot. And the doctor said she had been exposed to some type of bacteria. Come to find out, in Galveston, there was some kind of medical waste that was found in that water. Bags and bags of it. They don't know if it came off of a garbage barge or whatever. But not to mention the fact that all along the Gulf Coast is dotted with these oil rigs out there. And every now and then you get these blobs and balls, like black balls of tar that wash onto the land, and then the sand washes over it as the tide comes in and out. And you're just walking along the beach, all of a sudden you step on something, it's like, ugh. You pick up your foot, now your foot is covered with tar. The last time I actually got into this beach called McFadden Beach, I was 13 years old, and I got stuck in this gooey stuff. And so when I stepped it in, went bloop, and I tried to get out, I had to step again, and now I'm like this. I called my brother, I said, hey man, I'm stuck in this stuff. And so I sat down, and I kind of scooted back, and man, all the way up to here, nothing but tar. It took my mom a couple of weeks to get all the tar off my legs. We have a severe problem within the Gulf of Mexico. We all know about the BP oil spill. How many oil spills can our waters take? And then we wonder why whales are beaching themselves, really? Do we have to wonder about that? Can you imagine if somebody sprayed this room right now with hydrogen sulfide gas? Well, hell, if we didn't get out of here, we're dead. We have two choices. And let's just say outside was nothing but a wall of water. We don't have much of a choice. We can either stay in here and die from the gases, or we can step outside that door and drown. Well, this is what whales are doing. Whales are beaching themselves. They can't stay in the water because something in this water is just disturbing me. It's itching my skin. I can almost hear these animals calling out. You can imagine what they're being exposed to, what they're feeling. It gets into their dorsal fins and their gills, and now they're coming up on shore, and they're going to die because they can't live on shore, but they can't even live in the water. Pilot whales are beaching themselves in large numbers, and everybody's wondering why. And we all know about this huge debris of garbage that's out there in the middle of the Pacific and Atlantic. They have these huge swirls, and they got these large masses of garbage bigger than the state of Texas in some areas. And we wonder what's going on. Fresh water is becoming less and less. Every time you turn around, something's being spilled in it. So now we got to find a new water source. It's time to stand up and fight. Corporations don't give a darn about you and I. The United Corporations of America is what we're turning into. You go to China, people can barely see their hands in front of them because of lack of regulation. And yet in those same industries that have went overseas, some of them still do business here, and they're constantly pushing to relax regulations. When we already been there, we was there in the 40s and the 30s. We knew what America was like then. It was smog everywhere. Cars were just spewing out carbon monoxide, and the air was you were barely able to breathe the air in New York and Chicago, and then we finally got it right. But they're constantly fighting. It's a tug of war. You and I deserve to breathe clean air. It's a basic God-given right. No one should have the right to infringe upon the air that you breathe, you, or me. That's the basic human right. And just like water, water at one time used to be free, but now we have to pay for that. And then sometimes the very water that comes out of your tap is contaminated. But are you ever compensated for finding toilet paper in your water? Are you ever compensated for being able to put a lighter to your water and it actually lights up? It inflames because of the gases in it, and you drink this stuff, and then no one's ever responsible for it. If you and I don't stand up for our environmental justice rights, trust me, no one else is out there. I served on the National Environmental Justice Advisory Council to EPA. They depend on people like myself to give them feedback on what they should do, because when you think about the EPA, before I got into the environmental justice fight, I thought these were the people that, yeah, they got our back. Oh, they know it all. They got it together. Well, no, they're just regular folks trying to do an extraordinary job, a very taxing job. And that is policing the United States of America on not just water contamination issues, not just refinery issues, but hog farm issues, CAFOs, where there's huge numbers of cesspools with animal waste in it. They don't know what to do with it. And some of these cesspools rupture and then flood into the rivers. Then it gets into the underground water, into people's wells, and now they can no longer drink their water. So now they have to truck water in places like Kentucky and North Carolina so people can have fresh water. Basics. We're constantly losing this. And eventually what's going to happen is we're going to have more than an issue with pollution, but people are going to be fighting for very survival. All this ties together, because when you have a shortage in a resource that you need to survive, and there's a minimum amount of it, you can bet there's going to be a battle. Because the well-to-do are definitely going to, hey, I could buy my share. How much do I owe you? But then, hey, what about me? I may not have a lot of money, but damn, I still deserve to drink water. Well, tough luck, buddy. Well, now I'm in a position, my wife needs some water. My daughter needs some water. I need some. My back's against the wall now. I got to try to take it, or else I could sit there and die. Very much like people in Darfur. I've seen the pictures of what happened with communities that have a severe lack of water. They die. Dehydration set in. Or they resort to drinking water out of the ditches, where there's tons of bacteria goes into the system, and then the belly swells. And now they have diarrhea until they get so sick they bend over and they die. Do we wait until our society is so desperate to tell these corporations enough of using up all our water to extract your oil or your gold and what have you? Do we wait until the air is so filthy and dirty that we can no longer breathe and we have to use respirators just to walk around and then try to say no? Do we wait until the polar caps melt, the glaciers are completely depleted, and we're all needing boats to go to certain parts of the community where we used to could walk? And now thousands of people have been displaced? And now a lot of people, like in New Orleans, when people tried to cross the bridge because of floods, they were being kicked back saying, no, you're not coming over here to my community. And people standing with guns like they were police, killing other people because they were trying to get to a dry land. Do we wait until everybody's going through that? I say no, we don't wait. We must continue to fight for our basic human right to breathe clean air, drink clean water, and have decent land to grow food up on. If we continue the trend of dumping heavy carbons into the air like we're doing now, we were all going to need a boat in about another 30, 40 years from now, probably. We have to do more to turn this thing around. We have to do more to protect the very resources that we need to survive. The heck with oil. What about air and water? That's some of the most important, that is the most natural resource that I can think of that's super critical to me and our survival. We should guard that with everything we have first, but instead we got it backwards. We're guarding oil. We're going to other countries, creating disturbances to make people battle with each other so we could take that natural resource. But next is going to be about going over there to get their water. Fracking. We're breaking up the earth's core underneath, and we're wondering why we have sinkholes. Really? It's a no-brainer. If you have a round world and you got a core, but above that core you have this substance called oil, and that oil has been there for thousands of years and is under pressure. Okay, it's fine. It's holding up that top layer of the earth's surface, of the land that we're standing on. But then we punch a hole in it, we drill down 2-3 miles, pop a hole in that thing and suck everything out of that cavern out. And now it's just void. It's just air in there. And you have all this weight topside. What do you think is going to happen? Eventually, it collapsed. It collapsed from the bottom down to finally the top soil goes boom. Whoa, where did that big 30-foot sinkhole come from? Duh, they know. But nobody wants to address it. It's time that we push and make people be accountable for their actions. It's time that we demand answers. It's time that we demand for more studies to find out why this is happening, because we know why it's happening, but let's go ahead and get the studies going anyway. And don't give me that bull about it's going to take another 10, 20 years for the answer. No, we have the technology to research and find out where was the void underneath that sinkhole. What was that about? Let's test the air in there. Was that once filled with oil at one time? And if so, don't you think it's time to stop punching holes everywhere all over the planet? Because you never know where the sinkhole is popping up at. In Louisiana right now, there's a huge sinkhole that's eating up mass amounts of land, and the bayous are just pouring into it and they don't even know where the water's going. Japan, the same thing is happening. So everything is tied together. When we came into this world, we were born on planet Earth. That's all we had, was us and the land. And in order to survive, we went to the land to grow food. We went to the land to find iron ore, and we figured out how to heat it up and turn it into something that we could make things out of. Then man got so smart, they found uranium. And then they discovered this gooey stuff called oil. How can we use this stuff? But the only thing is, they didn't do it resourcefully. We waste everything. Oh, we make these big cars, these big Buicks. Back in the 40s and 50s, they was huge and made of iron. And then they started realizing, wow, we need to find a more smarter way of doing things because we're using up a lot of our resources. But people said, nah, keep on moving. Ford Motor Company bought up the train systems that used to run across the Bay Bridge back in the 30s and 40s so they could sell more cars. Now look, you can't even hardly park anywhere anymore. It's time to reverse the trend. It's up to us to do it. The federal government is not in the business of looking at ways in which to shut down businesses that are not clean. They're looking for ways in which to work with them. If this is a product that we need, let's be a little bit more resourceful. But it's up to each and every person in here to protect and stand up and demand that your basic human right be left alone. and that is to have decent water to drink, clean air to breathe,